in the post-COVID era. I'm Ram Doshi. This is my wife, Badna Doshi.
Hi.
We work together. Our objective is we provide bespoke high-performance coaching, and with a focus to really, well, pre-COVID, it was to make sure that every dentist that we worked with, they achieved in a lifetime £3 to £5 million extra revenue in what they did, or retired significantly earlier than they were planning, or if they were actually thinking of exiting from the practice to create a value which would be enhanced by a fair bit. But post-COVID, we also need to be very mindful that we want an increased cash flow as soon as we get back, and to actually get back to normal rapidly with all the obstacles that have been placed with the various protocols that are there. So a little bit more about the people we coach. We've minimum of 35% growth with their practices, often achieving 100 to 200% growth. And we've done that because we've got a lot of experience in various areas. So, for example, we've spoken internationally in many countries. We are the, I personally, I work as a clinical director for Dentex, which oversees 73 practices mixed to private practices. So I get an insight into exactly, and I actually help develop and strategize the growth of those practices. We've both been judges for the Private Dentistry Awards for the last 10 years. We have a great indication of what great private practices are doing. And we've been coaching for the last 15 years. So, so these aspects that we're sharing with you right now, we've done over the last 25 years. And finally, more importantly, we've been owners of multiple practices, but also owner of the Perfect Smile Studios, which has had the primary focus of providing high-end cosmetic dental treatment. So
many dentists believe that if they become proficient with their clinical skills, that they will be able to achieve this business growth in cognizant with that. So they believe that if they become expert in their fields of dentistry, or gain more knowledge, or gain more qualifications, I'm sure many of you are here today because you want to do exactly that. And they feel that business success will just simply follow because they are such good dentists. The truth of the matter is that, yes, you become dentists, but really that is, other dentists will recognize you more than patients will, because the truth is patients don't really understand what kind of dentistry you do. And as far as they are concerned, they have a default set in their psychology that all dentists are, you know, going to be good, and they're going to be able to create that kind of dentistry that they need for their mouths anyway. So what a lot of dentists tend to do after this qualification is they find that their skills become redundant. They're not able to attract those type of patients that have the right caliber that they can do that kind of dentistry on. I remember back in the day, I'm talking 20 years ago now, but when I first learned about smile design and doing cosmetic work on the teeth, you know, we had to attract those type of patients so that our skills were used, became experienced at that kind of. You want to and the experience of the person that's training you, and you want to learn that, but you also want to gain your own experience of what you like to do, because dentistry will be slightly different in different people's hands. And then the biggest downfall tends to be people management, because the biggest complaint that I felt and have understood over the last 25 years, speaking to so many different types of dentists, is the fact that their team are not on board with the changes that they want to implement. And communication becomes very, very difficult. They feel that the more technical they become with the dentistry, the more they try to explain things to the patients often have this sort of befuddled facial expression with confusion. What tends to happen because we think dentists know what talk more dentistry, and the more dentistry we talk about, the more confused the patient becomes. So people management is another sort of pitfall that dentists tend to fall into. So the truth of the matter is, what I found is that clinical skills is simply one piece of the whole pie. There are so many other things that we need to consider if we want strategic success. And over our experience of mine and Rahul's time together, we've actually concentrated all the areas that we should be focusing on in order to achieve success and growth. And those are marketing, establishing a vision, systems, motivating the team, finance, and sales. But obviously, that we've all experienced this global pandemic, there are going to be changes as a result of that. And we have to understand what those changes are going to be all about. But the thing is, you can't just implement change without the thinking that it requires beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to lead to all sorts of mayhem. And one of the things that you will find is the team members will not come along that journey with you, or there will be a lot of resistance for you on that journey to change. And I know that a lot of dentists are experiencing that even today. So the thing is, it's how you manage that change. There's two ways. You can either be reactive to the change, or you can be proactive to the change. When you're reactive, you're literally losing focus on strategy. You're literally making instant decisions without any thought. And you'll find that you're constantly firefighting, getting off track. People have negative, and then you find that there's all the things you need to. Conversely, if you are proactive, then you will find that you have focus, you're following strategy. Your team likes that because they will feel the confidence that comes out from you, and they'll feel positive about it. But what I have found, that when you are proactive and you have a strategic plan that you're following, the biggest thing that makes the most significant difference to the changes you want to experience is creativity. When you are operating from a place of proactiveness and a plan of action, then you're more energized to be creative. It is that creativity that you harness to excel in the way that you need to. So this is a growth graph that I kind of come back to time and time again. If you are reactive, you will decline because you're operating from a place of fear. The decisions that you are making are all from a place of fear. I've seen this happen so many times, even now, when people are, for example, the COVID situation occurred. So many dentists just slashed their marketing. They literally just looked, oh, I can't afford this, I can't afford this. And it was literally decisions made from a place of fear. Now, that's the worst thing they can do, because they've literally shut their doors to new potential and new patients coming to them. The thing wasn't to stop your marketing, it was to use clever strategies to change the way you market. So it's more about empathy, more about communication, more about connecting with your patients than it was selling, you know, in inverted commas, the dentistry that you actually do and talking about the benefits of that dentistry. So marketing just changed, but because people were coming from a place of reactivity, they were making incorrect decisions. Now, a lot of people are doing this. So if you look at the horizontal line there, they are focusing on operational strategies. Now, we do need to do that because we need to exist, and any business that needs to exist does need to have operating protocols. So currently, that's what practices are looking into, the standard operating protocols and procedures of how to, provide the dentistry in a safe environment so that everybody, the team and the patients are safe going forward. But with too much focus on that, you're not focusing on growth. The only way is being proactive. The only way is using strategy and planning, because by default, those practices that are simply being reactive or focusing on operations alone, as the other competitors are being proactive, these practices by declining. And it's just like when you're introducing new things, like new companies that were introducing, for example, we had the books, and then we had bookshops, and the other companies introduced Kindle. And, because that was a new way of doing things. And if bookshops and book companies didn't move forward soon enough, then they were left behind. And a lot of these bookshops were, going bankrupt and out of business. So the only way really is proactive. Now, one thing that I will say is that every idea, concept, strategy, every sort of plan that me and Rahul make with Dental Wealth Builder, with our coaching clients, we always operate on a win-win-win situation, where our patients are winning and achieving the things they need to. Our team is also winning and achieving personal goals as well, and we are winning. We found that if you don't put into the formula where everybody is happy, then you just won't be able to move forward as much as you need to.
So, talking about clinical aspects in this current climate, we have so many protocols coming out to us at so many different angles, whether it's the BDA, the CQC, the BAPD, the LDC, and we're trying to get all that information, absorb it, and create our own specific protocol before we get back. Then we also have the added pressure of putting the PPE on as well. So all those are the operational stuff that Bhavna was talking about. And that's the post-COVID era when we get back. Pre-COVID, it's all about the types of treatment that you may have wanted to enjoy doing, that you want to introduce to your practice, whether it's adult orthodontics, doing full mouth rehabs, or cosmetic dentistry like we did here a few years ago, or whether it's introduction of technology into your practice with laser or with a digital workflow. What you've got to decide is the clinical knowledge, the clinical expertise, the clinical dedication you want to put in, bring into your practice, and then introduce all the other pies into the system. So therefore, we then create a vision for yourself, a vision for your practice. What is a vision? So I relate to a vision in this way. So if we talk about a person, a human being, they actually need 4 aspects to be successful. 1, you need to be mentally alert, physically strong, and emotional, and have a social connection. That translates in a practice to having a vision, a structure, being culturally aligned, and having passion within the practice. And the reason why this is so important is because the vision creates a strategy. The structure creates the alignment by the team. The culture creates the trust and the consciousness. And the passion, the ability to have empowered execution. So vision provides you, your patients, and your team the information of who you are and exactly what you do. And everybody wants to know that. So let's take an example of Disney. Disney is a multi-billion pound business. It had a turnover of over 90 billion pounds last year. And what Disney has is a vision. So when you visit Disneyland, their vision is to create the happiest place on earth. So when you're there, every single cast member, that's what they call the team members, cast members, has a direction, has autonomy to do everything that they wanted to make it the happiest place for all the guests who are arriving there, to allow them to have decisions made by themselves and thus autonomy. So vision is really pathfinding and very much strategic. And it's probably one of the most important areas that people need to focus on and spend time doing prior to embarking on any other aspect of the fundamentals that we're going to speak about or I have alluded to. So the question I'm going to ask you is, what is your practice vision? Have one. Do your team have one? Your patients know what your practice vision is. So Bhavna is going to now talk about the team.
Okay, so many of you might feel like this when you own a practice. You come out of your dental surgery, you go out into the reception area, and suddenly everyone comes at you. Managers come to you to ask you questions, team members come to you, and everyone wants a piece of you, and you can feel like this. And sometimes you just don't know whether you're coming or you're going. You're just working so hard, you just don't know what's actually happening. And for the sort of life of an entrepreneur, which is what you are, you're in business and you have the business of dentistry, is that sometimes you can be really excited and you're really happy and things are going your way. But other times things are going your way, and really, more times than not, things aren't going your way, in which you sort of beat yourself up and you have this mental dialogue going on where you feel, why did I go into business? Or, you know, nothing's happening, and why have I got these team members and I don't like this? And you sort of have this negative mental dialogue occurring. One thing that can take you out of that, and it's almost like a breath of fresh air, and you feel energized, is with leadership, with the correct leadership skills. Now, there are many styles of leadership out there, and sometimes it's just adapting what works. And I personally feel that you've got to be like a chameleon when it comes to leadership, where sometimes you adapt one style and other times you have to adapt another style. And if you've got those different styles as a toolkit, then you can pick on them as you need to. But generally, they sort of fall into now. Previously, there was very dictatorial type of leadership where I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do what I say. And there's a lot of dictation going on that, and it's a pyramid structure where you have a hierarchy. There's always someone above you. Now, that kind of thing worked for a while, but in the modern way of living, that's kind of, sort of antiquated now. And I don't know many people that actually use that, only perhaps those that don't know what leadership is all about and running a business. The way things are done now is more of a, rather than a hierarchy, there's more of a horizontal level where the leader is literally usually at the forefront of the battle and is usually, paving the way forward and showing the rest of the team how they should be and emulating the success and inspiring the team. So if that's the way to go forward, there are three kinds of systems that actually come together and interact. So you'll find that as you go through business, these core fundamentals interact in different ways. And with leadership, you have to have systems in place to make it happen, because some people are born natural leaders, but others aren't. I wasn't a born natural leader. And sometimes I think about my early years and think about how I was, and it just does make me cringe. Fortunately, I'm quite, I build relationships. So, they didn't really turn sour that much. But, I think about it. So I wasn't a natural leader. And I just I found that over the years, I've literally gained experience and I've systemized leadership, so that it comes across and it's perceived by your team as you being a good leader. Have the vision, knowing where you are heading and inspiring the team with that vision becomes very important. And then obviously having the right people on the journey with you is also important. Now, when I talk about team and team management, people often find that it's difficult. That is the common question. How do I make my team do the things I need them to do? And that's because the mindset is wrong. You are in the mindset where you are managing your team. Let me tell you one thing. It is impossible to manage people. People are so varied and complex that you cannot manage people. They come with all sorts of baggage. And the truth is, you don't really know when your team member turns up to work what is going on inside their head. They might have had an argument with their spouses. They might be going through a lot of turmoil with their children, their family, things happening, and all that baggage. So to try to manage people becomes very, very difficult. So what I've done is that what you do is you lead the people that then manage the systems. It is so much easier to inspire people, motivate people that are following systems. What I mean by systems is a stepwise process. There's step 1, step 2, step 3, and however many you need to get the results. So there's order and structure in achieving results. This is a really good book, if any of you haven't read this. It's called Good to Great by a person called Jim Collins. And I really like this quote that comes from this book. And it says, get the right people on the bus first and the wrong people off it. Seat the right people in the right seats and then decide where to drive it. Now, I would say, decide where to drive that bus first, even if you want to drive the bus. So decide your vision first, then get the right people on. People with incorrect attitudes, personality clashes, don't really, are not there really to be inspired. Get those people off it. And then what you do is seat the right people in the right place based upon their capabilities or their unique abilities and the talents and the skills that they bring to the table. The thing is, the ultimate aim is to achieve our visions. Our vision might be a successful practice that's, really talked about, or, whatever that vision happens to be. But the aim of the game is to achieve that. And we want to drive that vision and realize it sooner rather than later. So one thing that you need to do and have as a contributing fact to creation that you have decided as a team that you are going to engage in if you want to achieve the vision. So the values become essentially the rule book of how to behave in your establishment. And the more those values, the more you remind each other of those values, the more the behavior changes positively towards that type of behavior. And then what happens is something magical happens. You start living your brand, what you are all about, how you are perceived according to your vision. And the more you do this, the more the values are implemented, the more the vision is kept in the focus, the more you have consistency of living. And that is what drives the vision. And people tend to forget this because they tend to focus on so many other things that do not achieve this cycle. So we all want an ideal team, but what exactly is that? So I like this initiative. It's a committed group of leaders working cohesively towards a common set of goals. You'll notice I've called everybody leaders. When I have my teams and my practices, I consider them all as leaders. And in actual fact, we are, because we sort of underestimate or do not give enough attention or enough value to our team members. And we think that they can't cope with the things that we're talking about, or they won't be able to think the way we do. But the truth is, they're leading their lives. They're leading their children. They're leading things that they want to accomplish in their lives. So they are leaders, and we have to give them that kind of credit, and we have to think positively in that way. So there are three sort of permanent words there: committed, cohesively, and that translates to committed group of individuals. They're committed because they have the right values. They have the same values. They're all aligned with each other. They work cohesively together. Working cohesively means you're following a system. You're all doing the same thing. You're all doing the same thing day in and day out. Might not be the same as the other team member. You might be doing different things, but you're still following your system that you have as part of your duties. And then if you look at goals, your goals are your vision. That's what the goals are made to achieve your vision. So that is the definition of an ideal team. But I really love this analogy, and it really homes in the point of what leadership is really all about. A conductor can only create beautiful music if each and every person understands this really, really well. If the conductor has to stop playing music and go to the violinist and say, oh, this is how you should, or you should have done this, or you should have done that, then it stops you from making that beautiful music. So that's what leadership is about. And the vision can then become the leader to guide that whole business forward. The three most important things that your team needs is, first of all, purpose. They need purpose of why they're coming, why they're bothering to wake up in the first place to come to your establishment and join that journey with you. They need mastery. So they need, like we as dentists, we need mastery over our clinical skills to learn more, to become proficient, to become really good at what we provide our patients. Your team needs mastery as well. It's not good enough just to be qualified as a nurse or become a manager. We need constant motivation. I'm sure many of you, when you go to attend courses and you're learning, it sort of puts into action another part of your brain that makes you think of all sorts of things. You become positive, you become, you inspire, you think of so many things you want to do and achieve. That's what mastery does, and the journey to mastery. So your team need that as well. So they need huge amount of training on a constant basis in their area of development, wherever they want to develop. And you also need to provide your team with autonomy. I hate looking over the shoulder of any one of my team members and seeing, what are you doing and how are you doing it? I will explain what I want them to achieve. I will provide all the training that they need. But then thereafter, I want them just to get on with it. And they will become the expert in that one or that one duty. So if I have a question about it, or if I need to connect that duty to something else, I'll go up to them and I will treat them as with the respect that they deserve, to say, okay, well, you're the expert in this. What do you think about this? I'm trying to achieve this end, and you've got the part of the information. That's autonomy, allowing them to use their own initiative about how to make that role that they're in better. There's lots of studies done on positive emotions, and look, Dr. Losado-Rocio is one of them. And essentially this study basically says that if you have negative team members, you're going to stunt your growth. You do need positive team members in your team. You are only ever going to be as good as your weakest link. That is the truth, because that one team member, that correct attitude, will drain the energy of everybody that is there and will wipe away the creativity that you have. And without creativity, as I mentioned before, you can't succeed. So leadership is really about motivating your team members, training them and developing them. You want to develop them so that they can progress to higher and higher levels and achieve greater things. And then these people are part of your circle, so they're part of moving your business forward at the same time as well. I've had so many team members, eventually they do leave and do their own things because they outgrow what I can provide them, or been able to provide at that particular point in time. But that's what you want to achieve. You want to achieve people like that who outgrow you, and it's a great satisfaction. I think in this sort of experience we've had, I think, 5 years, 14 people that have moved on to do their own businesses or become managers, and they came in at entry level as nurses in our businesses. So I feel very proud of that fact. Here's a book. I love this book. It's a really quick book by Ken Blanchard. In fact, this guy produces so many good books, and they're really small and quick to read. So you can probably read it easily, finish it in a day, if not a few hours. And this book is really good. You should read it if you haven't had a chance, especially when it comes to team management or team leadership. And it's called Well Done. And what it is, it's about SeaWorld in America, where they have these huge killer whales. And it's how they train the killer whales to put on a show for people and their spectators. And what's interesting here, can make do all these. If you could make fish do these great things, why can't you make intelligent human beings work cohesively together? I mean, if you think about that, it's quite a funny thought, but it stands to reason. Do read this. It is about the art of appreciating each team member that you have, how you appreciate them and how you make them feel valued so that they contribute more and they move on the success journey with you. The other piece of the pie comes to sales. Now, I know I use this term quite a lot, and some people, may find it a little bit, apprehensive about using that. But it's simply helping people to find something of value so that they're happy to pay for it. That is all simple. That's what sales is. And in our businesses, we're helping our patients to make the right decision, their mouth, their teeth, their life. There's so many consequences of having good teeth and good mouth and functionality and in aesthetics. And that has a huge impact on their lives that sometimes we can only imagine a small part of that, but it's sometimes so huge. A few years ago when we were practicing, me and Rahul, we did I don't know if many of you know this, but we did Extreme Makeover on TV, where we had these patients that we completely, I think we did 3 seasons of that, but we transformed their lives. And you know what? The impact that just a smile had on them was just amazing. It was like, it transformed their lives. When we saw them for recall appointments a year later, it was just amazing. The things that they one person said that she actually found herself. She'd lost herself over years and she found herself. And it's really sort of inspiring to you. You feel so fulfilled when you're part of that kind of movement. So when it comes to sales, or how patients, whether they accept your recommended treatment plans or not, it's worth looking closely at the actual buying decision. So people buy high ticket items all the time, and there is a reason they buy that. There is a way of thinking that they actually choose to buy something very expensive when they can quite easily get it for less. I mean, I know I've got a real thing like many other women out there. I love buying shoes, I love buying handbags, and my family's constantly nagging at me saying, why do you need so much? But the thing is, there's a psychology involved in buying, why you make that decision. The truth is, the purchase behavior of human beings is very emotional. We often don't make logical decisions when it comes to buying things that we want. And the truth is, you value what you want, not what you need. Because once a feeling you have, and when you have that feeling and that sort of sensation, it makes you feel really good and you want more of it. So you remember that, you sort of train your psychology into that. Need, however, is a feeling you have and you don't want to have that again. And that's like sending your car to the service and paying for that, or the tires of your car might need changing, or the sterilizer isn't working, you have to pay for that. I mean, right now none of us want to pay for PPE, but we still have to do that. So that's need based, and we don't really enjoy it, but we just have to do it. Case acceptance, patient accepting your treatment advice only occurs when patients want what they need, but they also experience the value behind it. And the truth is, whatever cost of your treatment plan is, there's a perceived value to it. So if in the patient's mind, they feel that your cost is the same as what they've got in their head as a perceived value, not the actual cost, the perceived value, then they'll say, yeah, that's a fair fee. I kind of expected that anyway. However, when you have provided so much value in so many ways to the patient that the cost seems inconsequential, then they will think that this is a bargain and they will enjoy the experience. The problem lies is when the perceived value is so low and all you have done there is said, I'm a good dentist, because that's what you've been, but nothing else in terms of the way patient perceives things is of value, then cost is going to be an issue. So when value is not perceived, cost will always be an issue. And that's when patients think it's too high a fee. And people correlate that with, I provided the dentistry, the fee must be really high. And that's why the patient said no. And so maybe we should lower the fee, or maybe we should give a discount. But it's never that case. It's because you haven't added value to that. You haven't given the patient a journey and an experience that they want, that they enjoy, that they've seen, that it's how good it's been for them to come there. Now, some of you may have experienced this already, where patients come to you with an optimum treatment plan that they have in their head. They've done their research on Google and YouTube and what have you. They've they literally come to you and tell you, I would like 2 implants here, I would like this, and they literally treatment plan themselves. Now, on the other hand, you see the patient, you look inside their mouth and thinking, oh, I don't know how I'm going to put an implant in there, or which implant I'm going to put in there. Or you might look at them and say, you've got such bad perio that, that I don't want to, that,
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining.
Sorry. They have such bad perio that you think, oh, there's no way I can do any dentistry until we've got this under control. So you have a treatment plan, an optimum treatment plan in your mind. The thing is, case acceptance will not occur if these 2 things are not the same, or you have not made it in a way that's the same. Case acceptance, the patient's optimum treatment plan and your optimum treatment plan somehow meet in the middle in a way that the patient understands. And usually the aim of the game is for them to understand what you're trying to say and the advice you're giving, because you're the expert and you're the professional in this area. So what I've done is when it comes to adding value and improving the new patient journey and improving their experiences, I've literally cut it down and broken it down into small parts and created an anatomy of the whole thing so that we can understand what that happens, so we can get case acceptance from them. And it is about wowing them with the new patient experience. Ken Blanchard's book here, Raving Fans, that's what you want to create. You want to create your patients to become raving fans, so that they talk to you in so many ways that you've literally got word of mouth marketing in action there. One thing you need to consider before you kind of go into understanding what the anatomy of adding value is and the sales process and all this kind of thing is where your brand positioning is. Are you a premium brand? Because premium brands like Chanel's, Gucci's, Hermes, they are different in the way that they come across and perceived value is to lower range brands like Primark. So you need to understand where you are in that and what your brand needs to say, because your brand values are perceived through all the sensory systems that your patient has. This is what leads to them feeling things, and that's that emotional purchasing behavior that they have. They don't see things logically. They won't understand the kind of how many millimeters or microns you're taking off a tooth or adding to it, or they will not understand occlusion. They don't understand the technical aspect of that because it's just too complicated for them to understand. But they do understand how their teeth will look, or they do understand how they feel, or they do understand nowadays the safety protocols. You know, if you communicate that to them, they'll understand, oh, you know, this practice is taking care of me. So it's things that they understand. And of course, effective and efficient communication is really, really vital as part of this. And the truth is, we need to systemize that. So I've systemized the case acceptance process. I mean, you could call this the communication process as well. And in this process, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help our patients understand what we're saying, the treatment plan we're saying, our recommendations are saying this, and for them to co-discover with us what's them, so that they can make an informed decision and an informed choice of the options that you present them. So essentially there are three areas, three sort of stages to this. You have the pre-assessment. So before COVID, you had the new patient phone call, and that needed to be answered in a proper way where you would, you know, make the patient feel that you're the practice for them. And then the new patient experience when they come into your practice and the customer service that you provide them. And then the new patient consultation where your treatment coordinators will talk to the patient and discover what they're, you know, what they're looking for and what their objectives are. And now I call it the heyday when, you know, the practice ambience and the way the practice looked and the customer service that you provided for your patients was exceptional. But these days, now it's all changed after COVID, so we've got to rethink the whole process. And currently, we've got some idea. But moving forward, I feel that this process is going to evolve further. As we start practicing dentistry, it's going to look like a different beast than it ever did look. And we're just going to have to work with that to understand how that's going to evolve and be there evolving with that. And I'd be very interested to see what this process is going to look like in a year's time. But now we have to look at things like e-consultations as well as the new patient phone calls. We have to look at health and safety protocols, which is very important to our patients now, and is important to us for the safety of everybody. So that part of the new patient experience is that. And also we're taking more advantage of digital communication now, because you know, things that we want a contactless experience as much as possible. So we want to see how we can add value in different ways. The clinical assessments are essentially the same because you know what you're doing when you're diagnosing and treatment planning. But of course, we have the health and safety protocols in place now, and we have to be very vigilant with those. The post-assessment, which is the third aspect of that, is where we're taking more advantage of the e-consultations and the digital communications to help us change. So the process has changed a little bit, but not too much. But if we're early adapters and we take on this new sort of movement with digital dentistry or digital communication or contactless experience, then more to and as we try to say nowadays. So the three aspects, I'm going to describe that in this way. If you look at this triangle here and you look at the volume within this triangle as to be the amount of effort and concentration and focus you and the whole team put in that aspect, what most practices tend to do is in the pre-assessment, which is the new patient phone call, the e-consultations and the, that aspect of it, people tend to put less effort. So it's very mechanical, very administrative, and it doesn't take very long to do that. So I know a lot of practices in general will maybe spend 10-15 minutes on the phone. Some people offer free consultations thereafter, other practices don't, and it's a very small amount, and then you book the patient in for the examination, which is a clinical assessment. So they literally just had 10, 15 minutes on the phone. They come to see you as a dentist, you do your examination, diagnosis, treatment planning, and then you say to the patient, okay, Mrs. Smith, so this treatment plan is what I recommend, and it's £10,000. And, and suddenly the patient has had no experience, no sort of value or any experience. And we are expecting our patients to make huge decisions like that based on not much interaction or communication. And then a lot of practices, what they do is the final part of this, which is the post-assessment. Some people call it case presentation. They do a huge sort of show for it, and they really, they go very flamboyant, like it's a stage show, and they really sort of, talk about all the different aspects. And what happens is the patient has to take in all this information all in one go. And that's the reason why many people get this kind of format and this kind of structure. What I teach is I flipped the triangle around. I feel that 80% of the time needs to be spent in the pre-assessment, where you are engaging your patient in communication, you're helping them to understand, you're understanding their world, what that looks like, you're really getting to know what it is that they're trying to achieve and why, the why behind the dentistry that you're going to eventually be advising. And what this is called in sort of business talk, it's called closing at the beginning rather than at the end. So by the time these patients come in to see a dentist, where you are doing the diagnosis and the treatment planning, they're kind of sold. They know what they need. They know what the options are. They know what's actually happening, and all that there is left is for them to engage with you to understand which kind of options are going to be the best for them. And then the final bit should literally just be a formality of signing, booking appointments, collecting payments, consents, information, that sort of thing. So this is the sales process that I actually teach, where we close right at the beginning. And there's many components of this, and I've literally broken it all down into the various parts.
Right, so when we're thinking about the pre-assessment, it's all about creating that excitement that you want to actually visit the practice that you are planning to. So this occurs actually before the patients have even set foot in the door. It actually happens digitally when you do the research, or when the patient does the research actually on the website, or whether it may be from testimonials that the practice, the before and after photo, or even any video presentations showing off their expertise that the dentist may have. So all this information is really useful to actually get to have the patient gain the want, the trust, and also the drive to visit. So when the patient does phone, they actually don't want to be disappointed. They actually want to become a patient. And the only thing that we can do is either try and make sure that what they want is what we're going to try and offer and achieve for them, and not actually disencourage that from the way we respond to people on the phone or by email. So what's imperative is that all phone calls are answered really quickly within 3 rings. That's our standard practice. The email response will be within the hour of receipt. When people are acknowledged and the response is quick, it looks as if there is care. The care comes from the speed of response. What sometimes occurs is there are missed calls, and that's because the practice is busy, especially at lunchtime when sometimes the answer phone is switched off. So it's imperative that new patients especially can get through when they have the time available, and that's often at lunchtimes. So when a patient does arrive, what we want to do is provide them care, individual attention, and as I've mentioned previously, develop the relationship, develop the trust, because people go ahead to do business with, to actually have sales with people that they trust. And that really just comes from the care, the information, and So post-COVID, that care attention is actually shown in the best way by having virtual consultations. And with those virtual consultations, it allows the patient and the dentist to build a relation, for the patient to actually show their concerns and explain that. And for dentists to actually explore potential options that may be available. So there's no diagnosing occurring, but just discussion of what has been done previously. So with the post-COVID era, when a patient does come for treatment, say if it's an emergency patient, we need to have all aspects of equipment and material available. So the cupboards and the drawers of that surgery are not opened in any way. So there's a lot of pre-planning involved. And also we need to guesstimate if we are going to see a patient as a low risk age, means aerosol generated exposure, or high risk AGE procedure. Because what we often recommend is to try and segregate these type of visits to allow maximum efficiency. This also allows us to be able to discuss and provide consent to the patient and an estimate digitally, so they are well aware of what they expect. And it's all about keeping their expectations met. And finally, to perform a COVID screen for the patient, and also inform the patient of the slight change in the new patient journey that they should expect when they arrive at the practice. So the visualization, the communication of the new patient journey is actually an important aspect, and us actually fulfilling that, not just on them, but all other patients, is vital. That's what creates trust. And people make decisions within the first 3 seconds of when they see, especially in this post-COVID era, of how cleanliness and sterility is looked at, but also the environment. The environment still needs to be warm, friendly, and appealing to the patients. So how do we know when the patient that arrives to our practice have had a positive experience? We find out because, or we don't find out, but they talk about it. They talk about it in various forms of social media, whether it may be on the Facebook, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, their WhatsApp messages. So they are spreading the word of their experiences to their friends and people they know. And also that then creates a perception of the brand of the practice they visited. Experience, every patient matters, because a brand perception is created for every single appointment then. So what does inform our patients of our brand values? It is the conversations that are occurring on these social media entities, and also the whole journey from start to finish, from the first visit to the website to the provision or the completion of treatment in the journey that the patient experiences. That creates the brand perception. So as you've seen, social media is not just an important part of marketing, but it's actually one of the most important steps, or the beginning step in the patient journey as well, and a validation as to why the practice is and what the practice's vision is as well. So when most people only think marketing and they blank out important pies in the pieces of the puzzle, and if you just think of marketing, there is going to be minimal or negligible return on investment in that marketing activity. So marketing activity works well when we are considering all other entities together. So when thinking of marketing, what is marketing? It's summarized by the statement really well, is getting across the message of who you are and what you can do across to the right caliber of patients using the appropriate promotion for them. So when you read a statement, who you are and what you can do, that reminds us of that statement I mentioned about the vision. Vision provides direction of who you are and what you can do to your patients, your team, and yourself. And again, it's getting that message out to the right caliber of patients. So the vision comes in at all points. Steps in creating that marketing promotion starts with knowing that message, knowing that vision, knowing who your patient types are, and then understanding what type of marketing promotion is the best way of contacting that patient type for the services that you want to provide. And then, of course, having a plan and a structure to all those activities. So the marketing progression varies for different types of entities. So when we're looking at referral practices, these type of practices have pre-sold patients who are recommended by dentists who have a relationship with that referral practice. And therefore, the actual trust is implied and pre-built. We have a statement when practice with local businesses, the familiarity is built by conversations that occur by the owners of the local businesses that you have had conversations with, and that familiarity is also transferred over. With newspaper ads or any form of media ads, these are new relationships. And likewise with any online Google marketing and also social media marketing. So the whole journey with new relationship needs to be really well thought, focused upon, and every aspect of that relationship needs to be nurtured and created for a patient to actually become one that they will enjoy come to the practice for. So I'll give you a little bit of insight into our marketing knowledge. So we mentioned earlier on that the perfect smile was during years ago. And until now, it has significant number of visitors a day. That's 1,200 visitors a day that visit the practice website, compared to an average, I would say, of around 30 to 50 for the average practice. So you can see the growth is occurring, but specifically for the type of services that the practice wants to provide. Here's another practice that we've worked with, where if you were to type in the keywords dental implants London, which is a very targeted keyword, but a very popular keyword. The practice that we were working with is Marylebone Implant Center, and you can see an ad appearing, and they're number 3 on that ad. However, when we play, there's a video for this, you will see that that appears also on the map as the first entity on the map. So it will appear as the answers that are provided by the questions that appear in the section. And finally, it appears number 2 in the organic search that you see right now. So that practice has appeared 4 times within that first page. So it actually owns the page for those keywords. And that's what marketing is about. So let's just break that down for a second. So when we look at what's the ad, where it says ad on the description, that's called pay-per-click, where we are paying Google for every time somebody clicks on that ad. And that's often around £10. And some may become patients, some may not. So it's an expensive way of acquiring patients. The second way is local, and it's limited to the area or the location, and that you can see on the maps where the practice is appearing at the top. And finally, what is free and what creates a lot of traffic is what's called search engine optimization, where you appear what's called organically, that's without paying Google for anybody to click on you. And that occurs by providing great content and quality links. Something which is often forgotten about, but really important, and these are the less competitive pages. And this is when people are in their research sort of mode of questions they will be thinking about. Is it cheaper to do this elsewhere? That's regarding dental implants. How long do implants last? And if you are providing clear answers to these solutions, there's no reason why Google won't have your answers as the answers that people should look at. So having helpful websites with granular content is also a way visible. So I've mentioned that search engine optimization can create a large volume of visitors, but that depends on the content. The more unique it is, and the more it reflects your practice, i.e. your vision, the more it's written by you and that you provided photos for and videos for, the more it will stand out from the generic content that's out there, and also the more it will start ranking. So SEO, PPC, social, these are all various entities that will help market your practice. And when you look at the website actually does need to reflect the practice vision. So what feeling do you get when you look at this website? Or more importantly, if you look at this website, the vision of the practice is absolutely loud and clear before you've clicked on any button. And their vision is beautiful, life-changing, advanced dentistry. It can't be clearer as to what they do and what the patients may be looking for. So that, again, is the importance of the vision. And finally, I just want to leave you with a few thoughts. People assume that when they see an ad or they visit a website, that they will automatically become a patient of the practice. And that's so far from the truth. What actually happens is that the patient may visit an ad or a website. They will then visit a competitor website. They may look at your social media posts. They may look at your competitor again. They may look at your blogs. They'll visit your website again. They might look at some reviews. And then they will, and that's all part of the patient journey before they even phone you. So it's important to know that every aspect of the message that you are sending out is reflecting your brand value. So you've seen that social media is an important part of that journey in the decision making. And you can also see that what portions of your first customers now come from social media. And that's risen slowly from 5% about a decade ago to over 15% currently, approaching 20%. So what form of social media works best for a dental practice? It's actually Facebook. So despite the popularity of Instagram, you can see there's a significant difference between what Facebook can achieve as a first touch or a first contact to the practice versus Instagram. And the second most important is YouTube. What types of content? All live video. It's almost, not quite, but doubling just normal videos, and then images. So those are the three types of posts that will create engagement and hopefully then the first contact that we're all wishing. So once a patient has visited a website, continuous connection with them, either via email, landing pages, or further messages is what allows them actually to continue that journey. And again, to summarize, the whole journey in marketing is actually touching the patient in all the various touch points that may exist in the online medium. So Behaviour is now going to talk about systems.
So as you can slowly see, the whole sort of picture coming to play. Systems is again a part of it, but systems is quite varied because it connects everything together, but it's still important. So Ford was a brand name that sort of introduced the concept of systemizing processes quite a while ago, and they developed the assembly line system and now the dealership system, and achieved great success as a result of that. I was going to do this. I usually do it live with people, but we'll kind of, I'll just give you the answer on this one. So there's a company, okay, that does $39 billion turnover. the owners are absent, they're never present there, and it's operated by very young adults. So if you've got an idea of what that might be, which company you won't say this.
You can't see the chat.
It's fine. I'll give you the answer there. And that's McDonald's. So, you know, it's quite, this sort of concept is quite ingenious really, because the owners aren't there, yet they're still making the results. And what that is all down to is the systems that are in place. And they're quite easy and simple systems for young adults to just simply follow. Now, when you're looking at systems, one of the most important things to look at is that there are actually two distinct systems occurring in any business. One is called operational, and the other one is the growth systems. The operational ones you need to have regardless in order to exist as a business. So you need to have accounting, financing, CQC, materials, ordering, these kinds of things you need anyway in order to exist. Growth systems, however, your sales process, the marketing campaigns, the production, the follow-up, all the other things that you put into place to grow the business is completely different. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they merge these things together in their minds, and then they just have systems. Oh, I need to have accounts, I need to have marketing, and when you do that, the way you approach these systems becomes different, the way you approach these things become the same, and what you are looking for is that difference in order to excel. So operational activities can be left to the manager. You don't really have to spend so much of your time as a leader of the business on operations, because if you need more time in operations, you're diluting the time that you're going to spend on the growth of the business, which is really your main job. So think about it in this way can help. And just to sort of give you an example, looking at your standard operating protocols, which everybody is putting into place currently because of COVID, that is an operational system. It is not, the more you do CQC, or the more intricate your SOPs are, is not going to grow your business by the same sort of effort by the same amount in the effort that you're actually putting in. So you're not really going to get a high return on investment by putting more effort into, establishing amazing SOPs. However, if you put more effort into the growth systems, that is directly proportional to the returns that you will get. So that is something important to consider. Whenever I talk about strategy and things that you need to do, one of the sort of objections I get, there's so many things to do, and how am I going to accomplish everything and put all this into place so that I can achieve my vision and become successful? Well, there's a simple solution to this, and I will try to sort of simplify it as much as possible in the explanation, and that is, look at what is the 20% of effort that you are going to be making that is producing 80% of the results. This comes from a concept called the Pareto principle, where it's a law of nature, if you like, where they say that 20% of input results in 80% of output of anything. So what you need to do is to prioritize your to-do list and your team's to-do list in a way where you look at that 20% that's going to give you direct results first, and then everything else. The truth is, yes, you might have a huge to-do list, but it's always better to-do list than it is just to have a quick small one that you've just checked off. So, business entrepreneurs usually have, endless to-do lists. It's like infinity, goes into infinity. So, and that's a good thing, because you can constantly reprioritize, and that's what moves the engine of moving your business forward. So we'll have a look at this graph about getting case acceptances. So the vertical axis is about percentage effort that we put in, and the horizontal axis here is about the average cost of a treatment plan that you might have in your practice. Now, what tends to happen is there is a wall that most people hit in their recommendations that's sort of around £4,000. It used to be much lower than but orthodontics, and since all these marketing companies, orthodontic marketing companies, have been promoting it to such a huge extent, it has helped dentists to, if you like, sell that dentistry and advise their patients of that dentistry, and the patients kind of already are primed as to the understanding of what that advice actually entails. So they didn't really have to have all these systems in place to do that. But there's still this barrier that we need to sort of push forward. Before that wall, there's lower fees, but there's also shallow disabilities. It's simpler treatments. Patients aren't disabled, if you like, with simple things like it might be one or two fillings that needed, a little bit of perio that might be required. There's minor fit issues, so patients don't feel, is this the right practice for me for this kind of dentistry? Usually patients are younger and hence tend to have lower risks with the dentistry applied, and the overheads are lower because the dentistry is not so complex. And in this case, the dentist can sort of advise the patient, this is what I think you should have done, and the patients don't really quibble too much about that. And in this kind of concept, the word of mouth marketing really works. However, when your dentistry becomes a little bit more complex, and usually it's when you move more posterior in the dentistry that you want to do, and occlusion comes into play, now the fee for the treatment plans become much higher. And that's often because there are deeper disabilities. There's more things wrong. There's more complexity of the treatment. And patients are older. There's more higher risks involved. And as a consequence, you're usually looking at laboratory-based treatments like crowns, bridges, that kind of thing, implants, all that kind of work. And as the overheads are a little bit higher. Now, in it's more about the patients understanding your recommendations. So they're not simply going to say yes straight away because you happen to have recommended it. And your marketing is going to have really stronger messages. You're going to have to have really good market to message matches. And it's not just a case of asking which is the best promotional media out there. It's more about choosing the right promotion that's going to achieve that message to market match. And a lot of the reasons why a patient would say yes is going to be about team influence on them, as opposed to just the treatment, just the dentist. So after the wall, you're going to need more of a complex in how to increase that perceived value. The finance structure is going to change because now we're talking about higher value treatment plans. So you're going to have financial negotiation skills, or better organizational skills, or enhanced communication skills. So if you want to move to the other side, there's a lot of these things, and these fundamentals that I talk about, as part of strategic success, you're going to need those in play in an optimal way if you want to push past that barrier. So looking at finance, of course, you can't run a business without looking at the finances and having some kind of financial model that you'd like to follow. But the thing is, what I found is that sometimes, you can have analysis paralysis where you're looking at so many things and so many metrics and so many numbers, and, you're spending a huge amount of your time on that, perhaps occupying a team member like your manager, focusing on that. And really, you're not getting much productivity or return on investment as a consequence of looking at those numbers. So I've kind of simplified this a little bit, and I've created a snapshot which literally just focuses on the vital targets that are necessary for you to understand where the bottlenecks in your processes are and how to quickly make decisions about overcoming those. Now, it's no point waiting to the end of the year when your accountant gives you your finances, your management accounts and your profits and loss sheets to see, okay, this is what we should do this year now. You need to be making quicker decisions. So at least, if not weekly decisions, at least monthly decisions on what you need to do in your practice. So things like understanding what your weekly turnover is, which clinician is providing, what amounts, how many new patients you're getting, what your treatment acceptance rate is, what your marketing, which marketing leads, marketing campaigns are giving you the best leads. So it's really important to look at that.
So one of the key points when we're looking at stats on a daily basis was the number of visitors we used to get on our website. And that is in comparison to other practices, because that would give us an indication of the number of new patients, which will give us an indication to the types of treatment that we can do that month. So really, the new patients and the number of visitors to the website is really the lifeblood of the business. So the Perfect Smile I mentioned earlier on, we used to get 1,200 odd visitors per day, and that figure is visible under the sessions under the Perfect Smile Studio section. We used to have 12 conversions, that is in people going ahead with treatment, and the cost per conversion was £13.50 compared to, say, a competitor, which was about £50. So this is something that I was very looking at day in, day out, and that was growing on a regular basis as opposed to declining.
So as you can see, it is these core fundamentals that builds up that whole picture if you want strategic success. And you can't just focus on one. You can't just have clinical skills, or you can't just have marketing, or you can't just have finances, because you need to build your business on robust foundation, and this is what this will achieve. So do visit my website, because that's got some more information on what we do and how we do it. And also, just to sort of end here, we are offering 90 minutes of high performance coaching if anybody is interested, and we can just have a conversation. So just get in touch with us either via dentalwealthbuilder.com, or my email address here is bhavna@dentalwealthbuilder.com.